Hi, my name is Eluka Humphrey Fezwe. I'm a student of AUM. Today I'll be talking about a website vulnerability scan. So the tools I'll be using today are the Beagle Security, which is a software as a service platform, and also Probably. And the reason why I'm using this tool is that they give you the capability of generating reports if you own like the website. So it's a very robust tool for checking all sort of vulnerabilities within your website and your API. So the website I'll be using today to test this will be the beaglehack.com and also brokencrystals.com. So I'll be starting off in identifying the vulnerabilities and bugs within the beaglehack.com. And as you can see from the report, we have about 40 security vulnerabilities, which reduces the vulnerability score to 2 out of 10. And out of these 40 security vulnerabilities, we have 10 critical vulnerabilities, including 5 cross-scripting vulnerabilities and 2 SQL, MySQL injection, which is very critical when it comes to having an API or having a website. So I'll be giving you a detailed explanation of how these vulnerabilities are being exploited by attackers. So like I said, it has like 5 cross-scripting vulnerabilities, which makes it a very critical vulnerability. A cross-site scripting is actually a type of vulnerability that allows the attacker to inject code to the client space. So this actually means that an attacker can easily inject a script that would run on a legitimate website, whereby clients are able to like use that legitimate website, but it runs the code of the attacker. So with this vulnerability, it's easy for the attacker to target other clients using that particular website. Another of the critical vulnerability is the remote OS command injection. So it's also known as the shell injection. It allows the attacker to execute operating system commands on the server. So if the attacker has these vulnerabilities, it can run certain commands, download passwords, download a lot of server configuration that can also be used to run more attacks on the system and also get like customers information. For example, um, if the system contains like the database of usernames and passwords, it's easy using this shell injection to write script that can download this platform, download this information to the attacker's place. So another of the vulnerability is the directory traverser. So this type of attack, it's an HTML attack on a website that allows the attacker to restrict directories and execute command outside of the web server root directories. So the attacker can easily read any file from the server. So be it personal, private information that the client already uploaded to the server. With this vulnerability, the attacker can be able to access those restricted files. So it has like a loophole. Another one is the MySQL Boolean blind SQL injection. So this is like a technique that the attacker uses to like send SQL queries. So like I said, it's more like an SQL injection type of attack, whereby the plan and input data for a website might most likely be to recover data from the SQL. But with an SQL query injection, the attacker can write in some SQL code that will retrieve some certain information that the application is not supposed to retrieve. Another of the critical vulnerabilities also the blind remote execution. So just like I explained in the input data, this time around, instead of working with SQL, retrieving SQL information with the queries, this is more like writing OS script. So if the server is running on a Linux operating system, writing Linux operating system to get certain information, like getting the password, downloading certain information from the server, which can also be used for further exploitation. So I just finished defining the 10 critical vulnerabilities. Um, like I said, 5 cross-site scripting and also 2 MySQL, and the rest were like single vulnerabilities within the application. It still also had like 3 high vulnerabilities, which is the local file inclusion. This allows like the attacker to trick the web application into running into releasing some files that the website or the server is not supposed to retrieve. So the website has like that vulnerability. Another is also a high memory limit in the PHP information. So this is due to the misconfiguration in the PHP server, allowing the attacker to utilize too much memory of the server. And if there's like too many requests or there's a way of the attacker exploiting this, it can also cause a denial of service within the server because there's no like a limit of how this server or application should be consuming the memory of the server. So another of it is the upload temp directory accessible. So for this particular section, the server is vulnerable to allow anyone to access the temporal directory. So for your website to be secured, there are some certain section that the client is not supposed to be aware of, but the server has that vulnerability. So it has the website also, the Beagle hack also has like 25 medium vulnerabilities, which includes the application error disclosure. So this server displays too much information about the database, the version of the database. And having this information as an attacker, you'll be able to like check that version of the database to know the vulnerabilities that that database have and being able to exploit the server based on the vulnerabilities being discovered from the database. So the application is releasing too much information, sorry to say. Another is the X-frame option header, which is not implemented. So the website doesn't have this header, which is preventing browser from deciding which page to render. And this can also be used to create further exploitation, such as clickjacking. And clickjacking is also one of the vulnerabilities which allows the attacker to trick users into clicking links that reveals certain information. So the way this works is the user would think after clicking a link on the website, they think they're actually writing or filling information based on the website request, but whereas it's the attacker that already created that like that iframe, the information that the client is writing is sending it to the attacker instead of the website. Another of it is the HTML injection. The server is vulnerable to HTML injection, so the attacker can control an input point whereby in the HTML they can inject their own particular HTML code to change how the website looks. Just like the way the HTML injection, the iframe injection is also controlling the iframe elements in the website itself by displaying what the attacker wants, which can also be used for cross-site scripting. Another of the minimum information is that minimum vulnerability is that the web server has a PHP info page disclosure. So with this, it's showing like the PHP configuration, just the PHP version. Previously, the critical one was showing too much information, not just only the PHP version, but the database, certain information about the server. Um, this is another directory listing whereby the website displays a list of all the files in the directory, lists all the directories within the server, which it's not really good because you are exposing the entire server information to the attacker where they can easily infiltrate or they know what they are looking for. So this is not useful, especially when you're doing digital footprinting. Another of the vulnerability is information leakage using the URL queries. So the website is releasing some of the URL queries when you go to like the website and you open some certain link. You can see that some information, sensitive information like the credentials or even the session, it's also being visible within the website. One of the vulnerabilities too is also the content security policy header, which is not implemented. It prevents cross-site scripting or all those click jacking. So once this is implemented, it tightens the security of the website, but it's not implemented. Another one is the allow URF open settings in the PHP, which is enabled. This increases the risk of running a remote file execution or accessing control bypass or even running a information disclosure attack. So the attacker can inject some setting remote URI that will manipulate the application. The PHP file upload is also enabled. This allows unrestricted file uploads and potential causing denial of attack because the attacker can upload voluminous amount of data, algorithms, scripts that can actually affect the PHP server itself. And also, the server is also using a very vulnerable MD5 algorithm for the session hashing, which is easier for an attacker to crack and get the session. From the session, the attacker can easily, log in as a client and get some certain information or actually impersonate a client in the website. And it has two low vulnerabilities, which are not too exposing the system, but they are still there. Like, for example, the cookies set without secure flag. This would allow the browser send some unencrypted requests. So for users using the website in a public Wi-Fi environment, somebody can easily see the information passing because the information, the request is unencrypted. Another is the HTTP strict transport security, which is not implemented. So the policy actually allows the website have allows the website to only have HTTP secure connection when interacting with users. That's why you can see the cookie set is not secured. The information will not be secured. It will just be using the basic HTTP. And since the HTTP strict transport is not implemented, it means that the client can easily communicate with the server without using the HTTPS, and the server will accept it. So that's it for the beaglehack.com. I also ran the vulnerability with brokencrystals.com. Um, you can see it didn't really have a very high critical vulnerabilities, but it actually had a very high vulnerability. So, for example, one is the XML external entity injection. So this happens when the user inputs the attacker can read this /etc/password. This is coming from the Linux server. This is where all the password of the user of the Linux server is being saved actually. And but though it's hashed, but with this, the attacker can easily, could read the file, decrypt the hash value, the encryption value, and get the entire user account and password where you can easily you SSH into the server and run certain configuration as it likes. Another is the server-side template injection. This always happens when the user input is placed in the server-side template. So an attacker can easily inject a template directives. So as you can see, a very high vulnerabilities, but not as critical as the previous website. This is also an OS command injection, whereby the attacker can insert scripting operating system scripts that can actually extract sensitive data or modify even the application or delete things from the server itself. So you can see it has two medium vulnerabilities, which are the unencrypted communication. So the website has this particular link that it's not running on HTTPS, but actually running on HTTP. So that's why it's categorized as a medium, because it's just a one link from the website that HTTP encryption is not there, but that particular place doesn't really contain sensitive information. But with that, the attacker can run some vulnerabilities, can try to exploit that particular link to get certain more information. So some of the files that were hidden on the server can be found. That's another medium, but those files are not really too sensitive. But sometimes, if though in the website there are no sensitive information that was found, but like hidden files were found. So imagine the owner of the website is hiding a certain file, like for example, the database for the password of the client. It can easily find this because it's not really implemented. So it also contained 21 low vulnerabilities, which are the weak sci-fi suit enabled, like for the encryption, it wasn't using like a very high encryption. For example, the site was using a SSL 1 point version, whereas we're in a TLS 1.3. So you know SSL has 1.1, 2.0, 3.0. Then the higher version of it, it's the TLS, but currently the website is using the old version of SSL, which is weak. Um, Also, three of the SSL cookies were without the secure flag. So this it prevents the browser from submitting the cookies in an HTTP request. So the browser sends in the cookies in an unsecured connection. This is a very low vulnerability because the attacker is mostly interested in cookies that contain the session, but like some of these cookies can also give the attacker insight into some certain vulnerabilities and also way of attacking the website. And it also contains the refer policy, which is not defined. This time around, every time a user clicks a link that takes him to another website, the browser is also going to attach the previous link to the new website. So if the user was in a very sensitive environment, probably maybe where the link contains his user ID with his token number and he clicks another website, with this, the other website can easily get that information through the URL. Another vulnerability is the open redirection, which occurs because of this actually happens because the application would have like an HTTP redirect to an arbitrary domain. So the attacker can construct the URL to the application. So anytime they visit the particular site, with this being open, the attacker can redirect the clients to their own website instead of the original website. So it's also missing the cross-site request forgery protection. So we call it the CSRF. So this way, it's been not implemented in the website. That means the attacker can force end users to execute unwanted actions on the application as long as they are authenticated. So with this being disabled, the attacker can make the user execute codes even without the user knowing they are doing that. So it also contains it doesn't have like the context security policy header, which is the CSP. So the this way the browser doesn't know what to render, so the attacker can easily make the browser render some certain things that it doesn't want. Also, it also doesn't have like a clickjack protection. Like I said before, the clickjack protection, clickjacking means the attacker can hide high frames within the website, and user is thinking they are clicking the right iframe, not knowing that they actually clicked the link that opened the iframe where they're filling the information, and they're filling the information to the attacker's iframe instead of the main website iframe. Also, the website is also using a very old version of jQuery library, which has some vulnerabilities. The GraphQL inspection is enabled. GraphQL is like an alternative of REST API. So it's like a fast type of API. It was developed by Meta. With this, the attacker can obtain API queries, the fields, the directives within the application, potentially revealing some certain information. So it also has five full part disclosure. So it also disclosed like five parts, which is not supposed to be giving the attacker more information about it, such as the SQL injection, the path traverser. He also was listing some of the directories. So majority of this website, they have these vulnerabilities whereby they display certain informations that it's not supposed to be. So when building a website, you have to like build a website that restricts certain information to client or any other person, except the in-house people can know this information because they have access to the code base. So it also has a two cookie without the HTTP only flag. So without having this stuff, cross-site scripting vulnerability is also present. Um, the browser content sniffing is also allowed, so which means crawlers can easily, sniff the content type of the response from the server to the client. It means that the browser that is trying to guess the content type by looking at the response that the server renders. This behavior can also lead to execution of malicious code. And the bootstrap that was used for this website is also outdated and it has like some vulnerabilities. So The reason why I use this the Beagle security and you probably is because first of all they provide you like a free trial that you can use to run a vulnerability. You can also download full report telling you where the vulnerability was found and how you can also fix these vulnerabilities. They provide you with suggestions on how you can fix them. So it works on the web server. It also and when it works with the web server, web application, it checks for the SQL injection, the cross-site scripting, and also checking for server misconfiguration. As you can see, it gave us where all these vulnerabilities occurred, and it's also very useful. It's like a platform that integrates with your CI/CD platform, so you can configure it that whenever you deploy a new version of your application, it helps you scan and tells you if what you fixed actually works or also show you new vulnerabilities. And probably it is also exactly like the Beagle security. It's like a software as a service vulnerability scanner. It also works with an API, not just the web application itself. Like I said, they give you access to download the full report and also support a CI/CD pipeline integration. So comparing both of my finding within the beaglehack.com and the brokencrystal.com, as you can see on the beaglehack.com using the Beagle security, it discovered 5 cross-site scripting, 2 MySQL injection, remote OS command injection, the directory drivers, and the blind remote code execution. But for the Broken Crystal, we didn't have like any critical vulnerability. And for the higher risk, where we have the local file inclusion, the memory, PHP memory limit exploit, and the insecure upload directory for our Beagle hack. For our broken crystal, we had the XML entity, external entity injection, the server-side template injection, the OS command injection. So you can see they both have 3 high risk. For the medium, you can see Beagle Hack contains a lot of medium risks, which involves the clickjacking, the error disclosure, the missing context security policies, the HTML iframe, PHP information leak, directory listing. But for our broken crystals, he only had the unencrypted communication in one of the API, but the rest were all secured, and he also exposed some of the hidden files which were not really sensitive at the time, but can also lead to more attack. And for the low risk, you can see for the low risk, it had just the missing secure cookie flag, the no HSTS header. But for our broken crystal, we saw like the lower version of the SSL, some missing cross-site request forgery, the CSP header in some certain link. It was using an outdated jQuery and Bootstrap, and also the GraphQL introspection. So as you can see, the two difference between these two applications is that the Beagle hack is more focused on the client side because we have the cross-site scripting, the database, which is the MySQL injection from our critical aspect, and also the file and server misconfiguration. That's like the attack vector within this website. But you can see for Broken Crystal, it's more focused on the server side. So for the Beagle hack, the client side, it's very not secured. But the server side has like some few misconfiguration, but far better because most of the critical risks were coming from the client side. And for the brokencrystals.com, you can see more of the server side, and the networking is dropping, which is the unencrypted communication and the API risk too, because of the GraphQL introspection. So the common weaknesses both of them have is the missing security header. Both of them both have those stuff, and the insecure PHP settings with the outdated libraries majority of them are using. So the focus concerning these two websites is that the web application is flawed because of the cross-site scripting, the SQL injection, and for the broken crystal, it's more about the server side exploitation. So the server is being exploited more, it has more vulnerabilities in the server aspect. Then, but for the broken hack, not just the client side, but the server side. So it has more vulnerability compared to the broken crystal. And that's all. These are like some of where I got the references explaining um the entire vulnerabilities. Thank you.